Hello everyone, Luke here. Happy 10 subscribers day because I finally have 10 subscribers. I know it's like not a lot. Like 10 is a very small amount of people in terms of YouTubers, but it's 10 people I've never had before, and it's really nice to know that 10 people actually liked my stuff and not to subscribe. So anyway, thank you so much to everyone. It's been a huge help to support, and I'm going to keep on going with this stuff instead of giving up. So, with that in mind, we're doing Breath of the Wild again. It's another Breath of the Wild theory, but this is like a subscriber special, so it's gonna be big. And what's the biggest Breath of the Wild theory you could possibly do? Oh yeah, timeline placement, because no one knows what it is. But I did some really good thinking. And I finally know what it is now. At least I think so. And I think it's better than any other theory out there, so if you're watching this video, you're a very privileged person. So let's get on with it. So the answer lies in the fact that there aren't 3 timelines, there are actually 2. So here's how that works. If you generally know how time travel in the 4th dimension would theoretically work, then you know that you can't actually change the past, and if you went back in time, you would sort of just melt into the person you were at the time you traveled to. Don't quote me on that because I really, unfortunately, don't know that much about it, but this is just a Zelda video, so with that in mind, we know that when Link in Ocarina of Time was sent to the past to warn Princess Zelda of the coming war with Ganondorf to save Hyrule, he was actually doing the exact same thing that he was doing the first time he talked to Zelda. Remember, like when you, in Ocarina of Time, you're going through the courtyard to warn Zelda about Ganondorf. Well, if Link was sent back to do that exact same thing again to warn Zelda, then why would it work that time? Why would it work the second time if it didn't work the first time? That's also the reason why they show the exact same screenshot at the end of the game of Link and Zelda meeting for the first time, and then they do in the beginning of the game when they meet for the first time, because they're only really meeting once. So that's essentially what I'm saying here. So we know from this that there would just be no timeline split because events in the child and adult times are only one timeline, so they're just one timeline. However, with the games 7 years apart. However, there are a bunch of red flags popping up here in your mind, as I'm sure you're thinking right now, but so for example, Hyrule getting flooded entirely in Wind Waker, how could Twilight Princess be happening at the same time? Well, you have to remember those bubbles under the castle, well, over the castle in Wind Waker. Those bubbles are the same, and remember those bubbles, they extend for quite a long time. They extend for quite a long while. They look like an entire Hyrule field. It's about big enough as Twilight Princess's Hyrule. So that makes a little bit of sense there. Because maybe the bubbles are covering Twilight Princess and the clouds are just under them, so we can't actually see those bubbles. So the other thing I want to point out is that the holes of the map in Twilight Princess, where you're forced to get to one large area from another through those annoying canals. Thing is, those inaccessible places, like those holes, that the canals are around, could be flooded with water, and those are the ones that aren't protected from the water. That's why you can't go there. So essentially, I think now with all of that, it's completely possible that Wind Waker would be taking place directly above Twilight Princess. Because later in the timeline, when Link goes away to find new lands in like Phantom Hourglass, there really isn't, he's away. There isn't much more space for debate about the subject. So anyway, I think it's enough evidence for the little theory of the merging of these timelines. So as for the defeat timeline, that is a legitimate split. There isn't really anything more concrete for a timeline split than someone dying and someone living. That person would, of course, be Link. So with all of that, how do these timelines come together? How is this unification going to happen? What possible event could be powerful enough to bring together 2 whole timelines, the success and defeat timelines? So let's get into it. Well, I was thinking, And I began to wonder why Zelda has all those Triforces in Breath of the Wild. And I think it's because when Link died in Ocarina of Time, the gods lost faith in him, and so he lost the Triforce, sort of like a punishment, because he failed. That's why the games in the defeat timeline are noticeably harder, because Link has to redeem himself by overcoming much harder trials than usual. For example, in Breath of the Wild, Link has to overcome those nasty 120 shrines. First he has to find them, of course, and then the entire Trial of the Sword, which is really hard. I died so many times the first time I did it. And then he has to defeat Ganon. Apparently, for the last time, as Ganon gave up on reincarnation, but Link still beat him. So with all of this, I think that in the coming DLC, Link will have his Triforce returned to him. In Champion's Ballad DLC, after doing Trial of the Sword, and after beating Ganon, and after doing all the shrines, I think that his, Triforce will have returned to him because he's redeemed himself. And the way that the success timeline fits into this and fully merges these success and defeat timelines together is that the water from the Great Flood has actually drained and dried up. And that's why there's so many ponds and rivers and lakes in the world of Breath of the Wild, because it hasn't fully dried up or drained, whatever you think it is. But more or less, Hyrule's back to normal, and yes, it's a little bit wet, and for some reason the rains that caused the floods are still going in Lanayru, but Hyrule, with Calamity Ganon gone, is back to normal, and that's what I think the DLC is going to be about. It's about, okay, Hyrule's back to normal, let's build it back up. So that's basically it. The success timeline merges into one timeline because the flood drains, thus making Hyrule back to normal. And the defeat timeline merges back into one because Link redeems himself, finally, after so many trials over all of the games. So essentially, Breath of the Wild is a game about bringing things back to normal. And, I really think that ties in with the game's theme, which is, of course, hope. Because in many cultures, the color scheme of light blue and white together means hope. It signifies hope, and those are the main colors in Breath of the Wild. So it's really a game about hope. And that's, of course, the main theme, but I think it also has a deeper meaning for Nintendo because prior to the release of this game, and of course the Switch, Nintendo wasn't doing too well. They were doing really badly. So they were hoping, again, hope that this game and the Switch would, save them. And it was their final hope, and it paid off. They're making lots of money now off of the Switch in this game, of course. So it's fantastic. The game is great, of course. There is more Zelda content, Breath of the Wild at least, coming your way from me later in the year towards Champion's Ballad. I'm looking forward to do something cool with the channel and with Champion's Ballad. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.